I'm Lawrence Francis, founder of Interpreting Wine. I help wine regions and producers market themselves better online, and since 2017, I've helped brands like Austrian wine, New Zealand wine, and Washington State wines reach hundreds of thousands of wine professionals online. Right now, I'm looking for regions and producers who are open to new ways of marketing to attend a free live marketing roundtable. Registration is open now at interpretingwine.com/roundtable. Hope to see you there. I'm Lawrence Francis, host of Interpreting Wine, the place to learn from thought leaders in the world of wine and marketing, welcoming you to a special series that originally aired on Janina Doyle's brilliant Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat podcast. Across these two episodes, Janina and I explore first wine communication, and in the next episode, our mutual love of sherry. Today, we talk original inspirations for interpreting wine, my influences from outside the wine industry, what Gary Vaynerchuk has done for wine communication, the advantages of podcasting, the future for interpreting wine, including the 6 wine stories that every winery needs to be telling online. Enjoy.
For people who do not know who you are, do you perhaps want to introduce yourself? Because I think you would do a far better job than I would.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share a bit. I mean, I think people probably most know me as the founder and host of Interpreting Wine.
Yes, they do.
Which is another wine podcast.
Very successful podcast.
Coming up to its coming up to its 4th anniversary, actually. So
it's
I
been
think
4
it was
years.
20th of September, give or take. That was when the first episode of Interpreting Wine ever went live and kind of went out there into the world. And kind of fast forward, I mean, we'll of course fill in and go backwards and forwards, but
I'm sure we will.
450 odd episodes later, it's taken me to, literally to countries and to places and, experiences that I never thought were ever possible, really, when I started out. I started out with just very low ambitions, just, get the damn thing up on the internet, which was, the biggest hurdle that anybody ever has to cover.
Any content is better than none. So episode 1 then, how did it start?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be truthful. I have been asked that a few times on other shows that I've been on.
Have you lied on the other ones?
No, I haven't lied, but I wanted to give you an exclusive.
I love an exclusive.
So I went back. I thought about, who are my sort of OG influences, and I think this might be interesting for some of the wine fans out there, because so many people, when they start talking about their journey into wine, they'll talk about a specific wine, or maybe a specific trip, or a bottle that they were sort of given and it just sort of changed their life. It absolutely was not like that for me. We actually we have to go back to not that far back to 2015.
Okay.
New Year's Eve. It's a bit of a funny story. I actually came down with the worst food poisoning of my life.
It doesn't sound that funny to me so far, but continue.
It gets better. Trust me. So I was there, like, laid out in bed on New Year's Eve. But, I like to go out on New Year's Eve, and I kind of, my friends were out and I couldn't go out and join them. But I think there was a part of my brain that's like still wanted alcohol. Okay. So I was like literally laid up in bed and started searching on YouTube for wine content. And I kid you not, it was the channel that I found, which is called the Wine Brothers.
Okay.
And they're based over in the US on the West Coast. And I spent New Year's Eve 2015 binge watching episodes.
With them.
Well, yeah, virtually, virtual connection.
Do they know? Do they know that you spent
I have told them. Yeah, I've kind of told them that they were an inspiration as well, across Instagram. But the real big hook though was that they specialize, and the import company that they were kind of doing the videos for, they specialize in Spanish producers, and I still am a huge Spain fan, and I was, learning Spanish and around Spanish people loads of the time. So that was the initial hook. It was like, okay, wow, here are these two brothers who are making this incredible content that was like totally on my wavelength. It was all around the producers. They were like painting these pictures of, what it was like to stand in the vineyard, and what the people were like, what the producers were like, like even just like, the size of their hands. They were like, these big like burly producers with these massive hands. They were just joking about, you shake his hand and it sort of just takes your whole arm basically. And it just all of these stories, and I swear, it's was the first time that I'd ever sort of felt like someone had virtually thrown the door open to me and just said, it's not about complicated classifications, and it's not about knowing grape varieties and all the other things that I think people can kind of tie themselves up in. It was just around storytelling, and that was absolutely the start of it. That was where it all began for me. Kind of fast forward 2017. I was actually working as a translator over in Madrid, and I still do love the Spanish language, and that was the best way to learn. Go to Madrid, work as a translator. But that was only a 6-month contract. So it was coming to an end, and I was looking for something to kind of keep me there. And there wasn't really much out there other than teaching English, which just didn't appeal to me, and was kind of where most English people kind of tended to end up, and Americans. But I'd found a job online, an advert for somebody to do social media for a tapas tour company based in Madrid. So It wasn't actually the going around with people to the bars, which, I'm sure there would have been loads of that as well. But this part was around, just getting the tours and the company itself known. And I, had a couple of weeks to prepare for this interview, and I was, kind of quite nervous because I thought, okay, I haven't really seen much. The job market was pretty down. So I was like, what can I possibly do to set myself apart and be like the standout candidate here? And I was like, I know, I'll start a wine podcast. I will use the time that I have to travel out there into the the great unknown and go out and kind of, if you like, it was very much linked to what the Wine Brothers were doing. It was like, okay, let me go out there because I already had the Spanish language, and I could go to places basically where somebody that didn't speak Spanish kind of couldn't really go, and kind of get those stories and bring them back. And even the name Interpreting Wine was a nod to that. It was me kind of going out there, having these conversations in Spanish and then bringing them back kind of to the English side, and then broadcasting them out there to obviously a much wider audience. So that was the short term push really to just bloody get on with it and get it done.
So the first episodes then, you met the winemakers, spoke in Spanish, and then the episode itself is just you speaking obviously in English, telling their story? Exactly.
So again, it's very much, sort of, it was, that was again, the Wine Brothers being such a big influence. They also influenced the structure of those earlier episodes.
Okay.
And it was bloody hard work, I've got to say. Traveling to the winery.
Yes.
Recording, I didn't know what I was doing really. Don't know what I'm doing now.
Do any of us? Yeah, exactly. Do any of us?
But getting this like 3 hours of sort of, rambling commentary.
Don't tell them that.
But I didn't even press stop. If we were like getting in the car to drive somewhere, they're telling me about what they had. So then I would like edit it and kind of just, had to sort of tie this all together whilst translating it from Spanish into English, then write myself a script, then record it, then edit. As I'm sure you know from your experience, that is basically the hardest possible way. Yeah, Absolutely. It was like, kind of weeks of my life went by. So I actually only got to 8 episodes in that format. After I'd sort of been told that I hadn't got the job. Yeah, I know.
Oh, we should skip past that bit. Quick, moving on.
But
the legacy of your podcast continued. That's the main thing.
This is it. And I think that the moral is like using what I'd learned there and kind of doing it the hard way meant that when I actually came back to London and actually kind of, the shackles were off. There was no like language. There was, I could travel into London and I could meet producers there and I could meet restaurateurs there, and it was all in English. And I got actually a proper microphone so I could just, have the conversation and record it there and in the moment. Everything just got, 10, 15, 20 times quicker. And I was like, wow, this is so easy compared to how I started, where I was basically just making everything as possible hard for myself. I was like, wow, this is so easy. And that was really what I guess the brakes really came off. And I just absolutely went for it when I came back to London.
Well, every day is a school day, isn't it? It's all about learning.
Totally.
You obviously have gone full steam ahead with the podcast. I know you really do believe in digital, and social is where it's at for wine communication. Who do you think has been the biggest inspirations other than these wine brothers for you to help you on your journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I would say, no offense intended.
Wait. Are you sure you want to say this? Here we go.
No offense intended, but I actually, like, as far as it comes to podcasts, I absolutely try to avoid listening to wine communicators and listening to wine podcasts.
How dare you?
How very dare you?
Get off.
Okay, that was the shortest ever episode.
Yeah.
But hear me out here. The reason is that I just think that let's get some perspective. Let's kind of take a step back. I just feel like it's such a big world, and there's kind of a world outside of wine as well. And I just think that actually, like, by not recognizing trends that are happening like more widely in society. Yeah. I think myself, and I personally think that's, some people in wine as well, and maybe, the kind of how it's done in wine and the sort of status quo, maybe they don't adapt as quickly as they might do if they kind of took a step back and kind of got some perspective. So, I mean, an example of that is just that, and it's not exactly, but it's like I saw, obviously, like things like the rise of Netflix. I mean, that was sort of over that time, and I noticed that, and of course, that's not directly related to what I'm doing. Although I have used the kind of tagline, "I want to be the Netflix of wine podcasts" in the past. So sort of borrowed.
Dream
from there.
big.
This is it. It was series, really. It was people being able to kind of immerse themselves in a different world, which, I totally get when it comes to Netflix and to series and all the other, rise of all the other sort of, direct to consumer TV things that are happening at the moment. And that was what influenced me really to start doing series. So, doing a real like deep dive exploration of a region, of a producer, of a wine style. That was directly from Netflix. And I don't think that I would have necessarily got to that point if I'd, only been looking to wine for my inspiration. I mean, I would also, give a shout out as I have on many other podcasts to Gary Vaynerchuk. And I mean, he's interesting because really, I mean, he now is mainly, I think 99% or more is actually business content. So he came through originally as the wine guy, and he was only talking about wine. But interestingly, it wasn't actually anything that he did on wine that really got me going. It was him and his voice in 2017 that was saying and was kind of broadcasting in his way and telling everybody that would listen that, guys, podcasts are about to explode. They are going to be the next big thing. So it was his kind of insistence, like literally, and he's relentless, like every day, he's like start a podcast. And I listened, and that was 2017, and kind of the rest is history.
I mean, that guy is interesting. He is inspirational and also really annoying all at the same time.
100%.
Haven't decided what I think of him. In fact, it was funny. I was speaking with another wine friend recently, and they said that they had been very inspired by many of the videos out there of Gary V, shall we call it? In fact, actually, is that the name of his? He has a YouTube channel. Is it called Gary V?
Yeah, he's I think Gary V on most social platforms. But Gary Vaynerchuk. It's the same guy.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it's like he swears all the time, and he just tells people exactly what to do without knowing any of their circumstances. And I'm always like, oh, you just can't just be that blatant, like one rule for everyone. However, my wine friend said to me, look, you've got to get past that. There's a lot of passion in what he says. And actually, I think we are so like always trying to be very polite and maybe sometimes beat around the bush.
He's not.
He's just direct. And I mean, actually, so my friend said, come on, you've got to really get into what he's saying a lot more. And actually, for anyone who's interested in social media, anyone who's interested in digital marketing, I mean, this guy is like, I found out when I was looking into him, he literally had a lemonade franchise as a child. Did you know this?
Yeah.
Apparently going around on his tricycle, I don't know, I'm making that bit up, and apparently taking money from the other kids who were selling lemonade on their stands.
He's a hustler. He's a complete hustler. I mean, I will share something. It's not kind of get on his back, but he knows that he's very Marmite. Very, very Marmite.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, we're sort of jumping back to 2016 now, after I'd sort of watched all of the Wine Brothers videos, or I'd sort of had my fill. The next person, the good old algorithm pops up is Jancis, and she's like, go and watch the Jancis DVDs, and, which were also great, and, sort of soft focus lens. I think they were sort of at the dawn of DVDs, and but I came across, and so I loved what Jancis was doing and wanted to kind of learn more, but then found an episode of where she was on Gary Vaynerchuk's Wine Library TV.
Yeah, okay.
And I watched it because I thought, okay, I want to see this for Jancis, and there's this other guy, this Gary V or whatever. And then I hated him because he constantly interrupted her all the way through. And it's absolutely hilarious. He's like so high energy. He absolutely shouted the intro, and you could kind of see, like, I don't think he'd warned Jancis he was going to do that, so he probably like blew out her eardrum, and she just sort of totally tensed up next to him. But it was more that thing of, I just thought he was a loud, brash, interrupting New Yorker,
which he kind of is,
not getting the expert to interrupt. Yeah, it's a fascinating one. It's a fascinating one because I think where he goes and where he absolutely does what you've just said there. He will be so direct. But I believe that a couple of things. I believe that he genuinely is doing that to help the person.
Yeah.
And that he does try to get context before and try to kind of zone in on that feedback. And I've seen him also take critical feedback as well. It's just that maybe that isn't the stuff that gets broadcast so widely. But it definitely is out there, and that he's a real complex character. Like the things that he's like most behind. He talks a lot about hustle. Everybody kind of latches onto that, but he talks a lot about empathy. He talks about knowing yourself and actually
and family, respect, giving love 100%. To your family and time.
Yeah, he's a real mixed bag, and I get it. He's a contradiction, and if you just kind of tune into the loud energy, I would say, and don't know about the rest, then you'll do like I did, I think, and just switch off. I didn't come back to him for like a couple of years further down the line. So that was cool. Yeah, we sort of broke up. we met and broke up and came back together. Yeah, he does now.
I think for anybody actually who's intrigued, go to Wine Library TV. I don't know if he's even doing any odd episodes.
He does it
now
like the odd one now, like one every
yeah.
year, or Thanksgiving one sometimes. Yeah.
But it is brilliant, and he literally turned his dad's business from a couple of million a year to like 60 odd million by setting up one of the first e-commerce wine websites, which are still there. You can buy wine if you're in America, and he has that Wine Library TV, which actually, funny enough, I started my YouTube channel, which by the way, everyone is just not very successful because I just don't put up enough videos. And again, it's consistency.
Subscribe.
It's hard work. Subscribe, please. No, but I've committed to the podcast now, and it's so hard to keep on doing all the different content. I probably should listen to Gary Vaynerchuk much more, because one of his big advices is give, then ask. It's all about like literally,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
like you said, that hustle, but he's also very much about, it's not the struggle. It's about being clever, I remember he's a big advocate of create something once and make sure you put it everywhere, take it apart.
Yeah.
And he is a king of branding and marketing. But at the same time, for anyone who loves wine, going to the wine library, he passionately does talk about so many different wines, so much knowledge. And people said to me, this is literally going back 10 plus years. They said, oh my God, I don't know if this is a positive or a negative. They were like, you're like the female version of Gary Vaynerchuk. They meant it as a compliment, but they meant that because of my energy. But unfortunately, with YouTube channels, I think I'm still a bit too serious. So it hasn't. I don't know. I haven't quite found myself there, but we'll see. And there's still some good content. Everyone go to my YouTube channel.
This is
Sleep, Wine, Repeat.
Link in the bio. Yeah.
Well, actually, it always is in the bio. But he was actually a slight inspiration. It took me many years to get cracking, but he was an inspiration for that because I was like, well, everyone loves him. Why won't they love me? But again, you don't copy anyone. You need to take what you have, your positives. Now, the more we're talking, I'm going from hating him to loving him. It's weird. He has a saying that basically it doesn't matter whether you're like 9 years old, it doesn't matter whether you're 90. Like, stop focusing on what you're bad at and just take the things you're good at and just go, something like that. And it's so true. We spend so long just like, oh, I'm not very good at this, or actually not paying attention to our positives, so that we actually just waste a lot of time. Whereas if we really understand who we are, he's very much, isn't he, about personal brand. This is this is solid advice for anyone, whether you're in the wine industry, whether you want to do social, digital marketing.
This is it. I mean, I think as well, his story is interesting because it started with wine, and another story that he shares quite a lot is that when he had done and achieved the things that you're talking about there, like the YouTube channel, the e-commerce, but then he started to, if you like, on his YouTube channel, start to put out business content, all based on what he'd already done and achieved, and real kind of from the coalface stuff. He was getting a lot of hate, and people were
was he?
People were telling him, they were like, "Get back in your lane, wine boy. Don't talk to us about the business stuff." But I respect that because again, he got the kicks and the knockbacks, and he's quite obsessive about it though, because he will literally like save when people like take the piss out of him. He'll like save the tweet and then wait. Wait 8 years. Wait 8 years for to start this sort of multi-$100 million business which he's running now, and then he'll like go back to their tweet and say, who's laughing now, cowboy? Wow. Go back, and he's but as to say, childish and inspirational, hard worker. Ace communicator, loudmouth. It's like all of these things, and it's like it's quite a mix, quite a blend.
Absolutely. Well, he's pissed all over everyone, hasn't he? I mean, he's now got a woman's lifestyle brand, a man's lifestyle brand, his sports marketing. I mean, I don't know. The list goes on, and he's got how many books out on the market, but hey, we're not here to sell him. But I do actually think it's a really interesting conversation. Anybody who wants to learn about wine, actually you could do from him, but actually if you want some life lessons or you want to just hate somebody as well, I mean, he offers everything. He's amazing and he's annoying. So everyone go and check out Gary V. In fact, I think he puts out like daily content of his life anyway, doesn't he?
This is it, YouTube and all the channels. You'll find him very easily, I'm sure.
Well, actually, because since we've talked about this, and I knew that you found him, I suppose, interesting, inspiring in certain ways, I was looking at some of his stuff to decide earlier, do I find him annoying or not? And one thing that I learned from him that I will take forward, actually, is he's very much about document, don't create. And I find that fascinating. We spend so long, and definitely, I'm on social media. You've got to create an image, or now is it an Instagram reel, or how does it look fantastic? How is it going to be different? And it can be very exhausting and time consuming. And actually, if you're building your personal brand, it's about who you are, being real. And he's saying, document your stuff, don't create stuff. So instead of trying to create this beautiful picture or whatever, maybe just literally talking to the camera like, hey, I'm doing this today. Look at me setting this up. And that's your content. Your content is created by just documenting your life and what you're doing, maybe behind the scenes. I find that a very, very interesting way to get content, be out there, remind people who you are, and give them something that they may want to learn about in a way that's not overacted or overplanned in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's also, to just sort of change tack a bit, there's another, I guess, kind of group or school, the way these groups kind of all kind of hang out with each other on social media and, find them by the hashtags and that. But actually, like I've been listening, earlier in the year, especially, but quite a lot of copywriters and people who are basically growing businesses selling digital products to a mailing list. And one of the people who I absolutely love and would encourage people to just sort of have a listen to is a lady called Laura Bell Gray.
Okay.
LauraBelgray. And she's like a self-confessed like lazy person. She's like, I want to do the things I love, for as many hours as I kind of want to do them, preferably in my pajamas.
Oh, I love her already.
and get paid really, really well for it.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And this is the thing. It's like, I think, what, like the key thing that I take from her and kind of people that she's kind of gone on and inspired is that actually, if you are communicating with an audience, be that on whatever platform, be that on social media, be that on email, which is actually Laura Bell Gray's kind of superpower, I think she calls it, copywriting and email.
Mm-hmm.
But you really, like, you've got to just really be like vulnerable, I would say, and honest and open.
Yeah.
And I, say I'm subscribed to her email list, and I get these emails, and she kind of, puts in these like, really interesting subject lines that, one little tip that sort of stands out from all the things I've learned from her is, she says, if you're writing even to a mailing list, like, don't put the subject line in capital case or whatever, where people, we tend to kind of capitalize each word.
Yeah.
And it ends up looking quite official. She's like all lowercase and kind of, using a little bit of slang, and you look at it and it looks like a sort of email a friend would send to you. And what's which of the emails that you open first? The ones that your friend sent to you. So, there's lots of things like that. But I think overall the thing is just to try to be very yourself. To really kind of unpack what's going on in your life, and she'll post emails about just how her day's going, and really, but obviously done very well, and good, well structured writing and funny, but it's just the basics. It's just the things that everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a a connection I draw with that kind of document, don't create. Everyone has the same sort of challenges and pressure behind the scenes, even if they've got the kind of the perfect Instagram, feed, and it all looks so amazingly on brand. But, if you share a little bit of that behind the scenes stuff, then people will be, sliding into your DMs before you know it. And you'll be kind of drawing, like, I think, not necessarily a following, but you'll be making connections with people, I think, on a level that they wouldn't necessarily make if you were only showing them the glossy front page. They want to kind of know what's gone on behind the scenes as well.
So what about podcasting, though? Just from one podcaster to another, do you feel that there are lots of advantages in communicating through a podcast more than other places?
100%. What else am I going to say?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, it's rubbish. Don't podcast, people.
I'm wanting you to say what you think are the advantages of podcasting in this day and age. After having the lockdowns, maybe, I think that actually it's probably even more useful than ever. Everything's gone very much online.
So I think the thing I would say about podcasts, I think it's got, I would say, an unfair advantage.
Well, that's good for us.
Over so many other channels. So even just like, we can do this sort of quite left brain, quite analytically. There are now, it's just come up, just over 2 million podcasts out there in the world.
Oh, is there? Okay.
2 million. So it's kind of, this is the kind of big number that they keep a watch on, is how many active podcasts there are. There's like 37 million YouTube channels. which feels a bit low, but that was the stat I saw. 500 million blogs, and guess how many Instagram accounts as of earlier this year?
I don't even want to guess. You just said
a billion.
Oi.
So I think, on this again, it's sort of the analytical. Like, if I'm going to spend my time and depending on whatever your goals are, it might be your free time, might not be something that you're actually getting paid for. I've always thought, look, if I'm going to do something, I kind of want it to stand out as much as possible.
Yes.
So why not move towards the kind of the white space, if you like, the area that's still kind of underserved. And I've kind of calmed down a bit on it these days. But when I started, like in like 2018,
you were hardcore.
I was like, why are like restaurants not doing podcasts, and why are wine producers and wine regions, and I'd like call them out constantly. The pushback always comes around time, but I still passionately believe that it's still one of the best ways to create content, because you're going to stand out a lot more being a restaurant that's talking about your producers and talking about your wine list and your wine suppliers and talking about your sommelier and all that kind of good stuff. You'll stand out by being, it's kind of a bit of, big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
But if you're just another Instagram account, with plates of food and, you're then heading into, I think, pretty sort of competitive market there. And it's like, you can stand out. So I think, on the analytical side, just podcasting is just white space as it's shown.
Yeah.
I think there's also another, is more, interesting, probably more sort of emotional thing. I'm a big believer that listening to a podcast is really like the equivalent of reading a book. Because I think it's why reading a book is always so personal, and I think can be so engaging. It's just because we've got these words on a page, in the case of a book, and we have to fill everything else around them. And I think even things that are not described in the book, we fill them in. We can't help but do it. I genuinely feel that's how our brain is hardwired to just sort of fill these things in. And I'm convinced that the same thing is happening when we listen to podcasts as well, because I just think that, people can't help but imagine what we look like, where we are, what's the room like that we're in. It's just quite natural that people will start to do that. And I think that where people actually put a bit more in versus video, and where it's more like where you're kind of spoon fed, and the film of a book versus reading the book itself. I think the book experience is always going to be much more personal.
Yeah, a little bit more
than
real.
The film experience.
But do you think actually maybe that's probably one of the biggest problems in the wine world for communications? Like, they're not seizing the opportunity to do podcasts. They're just kind of following what everyone else is doing. Or is there just, is there just a million problems in the wine world for communication? Because I would probably say yes.
Yeah. Okay. How long have we got? No, I think I have been thinking about this. I think my big thing now, and I think where I'm passionate about, and I guess where my soapbox has kind of moved now. In 2018, it was my soapbox was, why aren't you guys doing podcasts? Rightly or wrongly, I think my kind of scope and the types of challenges, if you like, that I'm setting myself and I'm saying to people out there have gotten a lot bigger. And I'm now really talking a lot to people about producer first digital content. So this is, in my opinion, this is the biggest opportunity in the wine world, bar none. And I think, again, to kind of get the perspective and just take a step back from the bottle and from the wine Twitter, and just sort of get a bit of the context here. Let's look at all the other trends that are happening in wider society around food, really, and around products. I would say even beyond food. Things are even towards clothing and bags and shoes and all of these things. There's so much more interest now in wanting to know who made that bag, or who put those shoes together, or who grew those carrots, or whatever, just wanting to kind of know where it's come from.
Authenticity, sustainability, people, real stories, right?
And if the brand and if the product is good, then I think guaranteed there will be an interesting story behind there. I don't think that you reach that level of excellence, without kind of, really being meticulous along the way. And I think that if we're not telling that story of that dedication and that kind of attention to detail, then we're missing out, and the consumer's missing out, because they don't know, and they're not being told what's gone into making that wine. Line up a load of wine bottles on the shelf. How do you choose the label, the retail assistant, or the sommelier? Fine, but right now I just don't think, and I just don't see, for me, enough producer first content, and that's essentially the producers themselves, their voice getting out in podcasts, in social media, in these channels, so that they have the possibility to tell their stories themselves, and that it doesn't necessarily have to kind of go through a filter.
Well, interesting. That leads me on to probably the last question I wanted to know, which is the future for Interpreting Wine podcast. You've been working very hard the last few weeks, months to take the podcast in a different direction. Do you want to elaborate? Because I think you're pretty much set and ready to go, and it's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think what I would share is that I've really been working sort of the last couple of months full time on what do I want interpreting wine to kind of become, and what I want it to kind of evolve into. And I think that right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, it's that whole idea of producer first content. And I'll give you an example of why I think that it's so important. So I, as I say, approaching 450 episodes out there, a lot of content, and I've edited everything. So a lot of times I'll edit.
Not fun.
Takes time. It takes time. I'll edit, and then having been there when it was recorded and then edited, I don't always get the chance to come back for a third pass. It's sometimes that's it. I listen twice, and then they're there if I ever need them and I'm interested. That being said, within the catalogue, there are what I now call black hole episodes of Interpreting Wine.
Black hole.
Which are the ones where if I hit play on them, so for example, over the summer I was doing some transcribing, which I know you also love. So I hit play on these episodes, and I just can't help but being drawn into the producer's story. And I call them black holes because literally, like, if one of them sort of tees up by mistake on Spotify, or it just sort of starts playing, I don't want to turn it off because it's just so good. I mean, it's not to say, oh wow, I'm such a great interviewer, or it's such a great podcast. It's because of them. The producer content that's on there is just so amazing, and they are just such fantastic communicators that I just can't switch it off. I'm enjoying it so much, and those black hole episodes basically. So over the last couple of months, and I've been trying to really kind of figure out what it is that makes those episodes so good. Basically, what makes a black hole episode a black hole episode, and then also thinking about this sort of bigger challenge of more producer first content. How can I then essentially teach that to other people?
Yeah.
So that they can then, as producers, get out there, get onto podcasts, get on podcasts, get onto social media, and create that kind of black hole content, kind of no matter where they go.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that kind of came out of the analysis that I was doing is basically that all of those black hole episodes, they all shared something in common when they were producers, which is that all of them were telling what I call the 6 wine stories. And I think that these are the 6 wine stories that basically, if you're doing producer first content, these are the 6 wine stories that you need to tell. And they go from things that are visible, essentially, to things that are kind of hidden. So the 6 are, the person, about the individual and kind of their immediate circle, partner, wife, husband, etc. But then underneath that, story number 2 is around the culture. So, what is the cultural place that they kind of grew up in? Maybe how they got into wine, but also just like, what kind of community are they in, and what kind of people is that attracting? The next story is geographical. So it's like, zooming up, looking out, around them. Are they surrounded by mountains? Are they surrounded by lakes? What does it actually look like if you kind of, stand in the middle of where they are in the world? The next story, then underpinning that is geological. So it's like, what has happened in the space of the last, however long that they know of, to form that geology, which I think is what a lot of people talk about in terms of when they sort of dive into talking about the wine. But I'm not sure that they necessarily spend long enough, just sort of talking about what's under the soil. I think done well, it can be really interesting, because it's like, it's the stuff that's hidden, it's the stuff that you can't see, but it's absolutely having a huge effect on the land, and then ultimately on the wine itself. Then the 5th story is essentially the winery pre-harvest, so like right up to that snip. So like what's going on in the vineyard. How are they growing? How are they, what's their philosophy towards grape growing, and who's working there, and just like really sort of painting that story. Obviously, getting into varieties, etc., and site, and then the final story is around post-harvest. So after that snip, what are the people deciding upon? Why are they deciding that? And then ultimately, that's I think a great place to try wine then, because then you really have what I call it like a 3D appreciation of that wine. It's not just, this wine had 15 months in inox, and they did a little bit of lees stirring, and then it was bottled, and then it was left for 6 months. And I'm sorry, but, I think that's quite boring to just, it's like you're just cutting to the chase. You're just going straight there. And I know that, sometimes we've had to do episodes like that, and they're not black hole episodes. They're not the ones that I get drawn into, and that the listener numbers show that people get drawn into. So I think we just need to communicate more roundly. So that was the sort of the preamble. But essentially, I'm launching what I call a wine impact accelerator, which is basically talking to producers and talking to regions, and it's essentially getting them to a place and helping them to a place where they can produce that black hole content, first on interpreting wine. So there's actually a sort of a launch pad. Yeah, exactly. A launch pad is a great way to describe it. So there's like a pre-recording course, if you like a mini online course, so that when we actually sit down to record, they absolutely nail it. They're telling those 6 stories, they're hitting it out the park, they feel really confident. And then where we then go into a sort of almost like a maintenance phase afterwards. Yes. It's then broadening it out. It's saying, okay, you've done so well with that appearance on interpreting wine, and giving people a structure, but then also bringing in like other industry experts, as I say, want to bring in people from copywriting, from PR, from social media, also, people who are masters of wine, and people who are accredited in the wine world, being mindful of all of the amazing experiences that they bring to the table. And I think where this really all leads for me is really around building and helping to support sustainable winemaking communities. I think that's really the bigger objective. I think that where you've got people, they might be in the middle of nowhere, but if they can formulate their story and get that out there, the story will kind of, I think, create these ripple effects where we're actually, people, they might, in the past, they might have seen the wine and thought, okay, 30 quid for that, that's a bit steep, or whatever the price point might be. But where if actually people feel as though they've got the connection, and they've got context, and they can actually really see, actually, I know what this guy goes through, and I know the attention and I know the care that goes into each bottle. So actually, in context, 30 quid is arguably cheap, you know, and that's maybe an oversimplification.
Cheaper than a theatre ticket. You can drink it the whole night long.
This is it. So that's where I'm at really with interpreting wine. It's just how do I sort of make a bigger impact and make a bigger objective, and the amazing thing about, I think, having a bigger objective is that it's too big for me to do alone. If I just wanted to do podcasts, I could be doing that kind of by myself, if you like. I could be just the podcast guy in the corner, but I kind of want to do more than that. It's more fun, I think, to go on these journeys with people. So, I definitely, I'm reaching out to people who are, I guess, maybe working in sustainability, people who are communicators, say not just wine, but, people who feel like they're passionate about that kind of bigger objective, and they feel like they can help. Super interested to hear from people that hear this and it might resonate with them. Email me, hello@interpretingwine.com.
Absolutely.
Maybe jumping the gun a bit there.
No, you're not. I think this is exciting where you can take wineries. Absolutely. And you're a fantastic communicator yourself. People who are listening are going to have realised that anyway. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what content comes out. Seeing the journey in the next few months. Absolutely. Or should I say years? It's never ending, right?
This is it. Choose a task that's bigger than you'll ever make and going to be busy for a long while.
Thanks so much, Janina, for now appearing on Interpreting Wine for the second time. It was absolutely brilliant to really get into the nitty-gritty of wine communication with you. And I really hope this episode will help a lot of the wineries listening out there. Do, of course, see below for Janina's website and main social media handles. And do be sure to subscribe to her podcast for more great content like this. And of course, I'd love to have you following along with me on social media, where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. Next time on this special Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat Takeover series, Janina and I will be talking and tasting sherry. See you then.